This is one of the most important trade deadlines in recent history for the Seattle Mariners. It's do or die time for Seattle. A wrong trade here, a wrong trade there, it's going to cost a lot of these guys their jobs if it doesn't work out right. The holes on the Seattle Mariners baseball club is pretty apparent. It's second base more than anything. Obviously, second basemen are not easy to come by, and are the Mariners even in contention this year to make a trade for a second baseman? It's tough to say. By all indications, the Mariners are going to be selectively buying at this trade deadline, especially going into the All-Star break hot. But how they come out of the All-Star break is really going to show us what kind of team the Seattle Mariners are. But make no mistake, if this trade deadline goes wrong, or if they do a couple of things I'm going to list in this video, then Jerry Dipoto is gone. Scott Service is gone. So once again, the biggest position for the Mariners to fill is second base, and this is going to be a problem for them going forward because they don't really have anybody in their ranks right now that could fill this position. A trade for a second baseman seems likely, but we kind of thought it was all figured out when they traded for Kolten Wong. And then when Jose Caballero came up and was doing decent, thought we had it all figured out then. The Mariners have not had a good everyday second baseman since Robinson Cano left. The question is that guy available on the trade market? We've talked a lot about Brendan Donovan. Of course, there are other options like maybe a Zach McKinstry from the Detroit Tigers. I don't love that pick personally, but it's one that could buy someone like Jerry Dipoto a little bit more time if he doesn't work out, because you're not really buying high on Zach McKinstry. You don't think that he's going to be a Brendan Donovan type player. So he would just be a placeholder. Do the Mariners go after a placeholder at this trade deadline for second base, or do they go after their everyday second baseman for the next couple of years? And if you do trade some of the farm for an everyday second baseman, you can't miss. And speaking of trading the farm, we will talk about Shohei Ohtani's possibility of getting traded to the Seattle Mariners a little later in this video. Again, a need for the second baseman at the trade deadline is assuming that the Mariners are in contention. And as of the time of recording this, they are in contention at least for a wild card spot, if not even the whole division. Controllable second basemen like Brendan Donovan are hard to come by, and there really aren't many on the free agent market this winter. There are some familiar names on this list, including, of course, Adam Frazier, Tommy La Stella, and Kolten Wong. None of these guys benefit your offense all that well. Whit Merrifield may be a free agent with his $500,000 buyout with his $18 million mutual option. That might not get picked up. Jorge Polanco is another option with a $10.5 million club option with a $1 million buyout. And then if we look at the shortstops, there's really not a whole lot to look at here either. Of course, Javier Baez is going to opt into that deal that he has with the Tigers because he's been absolutely terrible. Tim Anderson may not get his $14 million club option picked up with the White Sox because he's been pretty bad. Paul DeJong has a club option that probably also won't get picked up. So, of course, there is a chance that these guys are free agents and the Mariners could go out and sign them, but they really are not the answer you're looking for at second base / shortstop. Then there's been the talk of trading a starting pitcher, including a video that I made about the Cardinals being interested in Logan Gilbert. The problem with that is if you trade Logan Gilbert, you have to find a way to replace him for the future. Obviously, the Mariners would have Gilbert through 2027, and while Luis Castillo, Robbie Ray, Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, and George Kirby are all locked up for the, foreseeable future through at least 2026, there's still a decent chance that one of those guys gets hurt, like they did this year with Robbie Ray and Marco Gonzalez. The Mariners' rotation at this very moment is relatively thin in terms of if another guy goes down, and we're going to be seeing Brian Wu get shut down sooner rather than later. Emerson Hancock could very easily come up for the Mariners at some point, and he might have to, but otherwise you're relying on guys like Tommy Malone and Darren McCacken, etc., etc. That's not what you want to do if you think that you're a playoff team. So trading off a bona fide starter like Logan Gilbert for maybe a second baseman, in the short term, it might make sense. But just remember, Robbie Ray isn't going to be back until probably the middle of 2024. You don't know what you have with Marco Gonzalez. Ideally, Bryce Miller and Brian Wu can continue this pace. And then, of course, Luis Castillo has had injury concerns of his own throughout his career. So yeah, you can trade from your strength, which is your starting pitching, to try to get someone to play second base. But then what happens if one of your pitchers get hurt? You don't have that option in your minor league system right now to fill that long term. One of the guys that makes a lot of sense for the Mariners, and we've talked about quite a bit, is Ha-Seong Kim of the San Diego Padres. But are the Padres willing to trade Ha-Seong Kim? He's honestly a big star there and they like him quite a bit. I think they should consider dealing him, and the Mariners would be a good fit. However, what are the Mariners going to trade back to the Padres? Because the Padres already have plenty of starting pitching. In other videos, we'll dive deeper into what these trades could look like as we get closer to the trade deadline. But nonetheless, these are very important trades the Mariners need to be making, and none more important than possibly trading for Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, the unicorn of baseball, the best player in all of baseball and maybe even all of sports. He's the best hitter and the best pitcher in the American League right now. Obviously, adding Ohtani to this team would be a huge boost to the offense and even the pitching staff. But with that being said, if you're trading for Shohei Ohtani, it is the dumbest possible thing you could ever do at the trade deadline. And I don't even mean just for the Mariners. I mean for any other team in baseball. If you trade for Shohei Ohtani, the amount that it's going to take, which is rumored to be at least 2 top 100 prospects for Shohei, to the Angels, you're screwed. Let's put it this way. The Mariners had a couple of top 100 prospects going into 2023, including Harry Ford and Bryce Miller, meaning that you would have had to start the conversation with Harry Ford and Bryce Miller for Shohei Ohtani, and only for like 2-3 months of Shohei Ohtani, because he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and there's no guarantee that he is going to sign an extension with you. I think the biggest possible mistake the Mariners could make at this trade deadline is trading for Shohei Ohtani. It would be the dumbest thing in the world. You'd be giving a lot of your good young players to the Los Angeles Angels, and a team that's in your division that kind of showed maybe they have some firepower, but they're not going to get it done this year. I would not want to do that if I'm the Mariners. You have the chance to sign him this offseason. I don't know if you want to pay him $50 to $60 million this offseason, but you certainly don't want to give up a bunch of prospects for him and then still have to pay him that money later anyway. Why not just wait a few months, maybe say, okay, 2023 is not our year, and then go out and sign Shohei Ohtani? Does not make sense to do both. The trade deadline for the Mariners, this is going to shape the future of this franchise, for better or for worse. If it doesn't go well, if they make some stinky trades, then there's a decent chance that we see Jerry Dipoto out, Scott Hunter out, just the whole cleaned house of these guys. I would not be shocked to see it at the maybe trade deadline of next year if it wasn't going well either. The Mariners have put themselves in a very, very strange position because you can't say whether or not they're contenders at this very moment. They're only a few games back of a wild card, but still far enough back to fall out of contention really, really easily. And like I said, trading for Shohei Ohtani is probably not the best idea in the world. Joe expanded on that in a video that's on the screen now. I want you guys to check that one out. Appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.